And here are the breakfast cards, awesome buffet out here. We're going to start exactly 8 o'clock. So please be in your seat, ready to go at 8 o'clock, no delays, and we're going to go hard until lunchtime. We'll have coffee in the room, and we all need coffee, right? You made that very coffee? Evil. Red Bull, right? You like that? I actually just like the taste of coffee. It does nothing, even if it's decaf. I just like it better. Yeah, you know, we left that. That's like on page 2 of the document.
I'm not going to brag about the right way.
I haven't had caffeine in like 30 years.
Evil. It has nothing to do with the caffeine for me. Literally, I just like the taste of coffee. Remind me and tell you the story of when I love coffee so much, I opened 4 coffee shops. And how much money you can't make on a cup of coffee. If anybody's thinking about, I love coffee, so that may be a great idea. If you sell a $4 cup of coffee, the most you can make is $4. Just think about that for a minute. Right? If it's a $5 cup of coffee, the most you can make is $5. I'll stick with the card.
That's where you're going to have that one.
After the first coffee shop was losing money, I said, if I open a second one, the more cups I sell, the more money I'll make, right? So after 4 coffee shops, I really had a great time during those 3 years ago.
Your wife too.
Yeah, we had the music in it. Yeah, it was great. And the staff loved it. It was one right up the street from the dealership, so they put it on the charge account, got the latte mocha joker things, and 35 pounds for everybody later during the summer months. It was over. Anyway, tomorrow night we're doing something very different. We usually go to dinner down the hall. If you've been here before, if not, just follow the ones who have. And we split up, you do your own thing. Tomorrow night, after dinner, in the same room of the plans right now, we've got a show, right? In the same room, so.
Yeah, hey, by the way, I'll jump in there real quick and say, guys, that you don't want to miss the show tomorrow night. Danny, stand up. Let's give you a quick little round of applause for tomorrow night. Already. I'll tell you what. I already know how much he's going to blow your mind. So do not miss dinner tomorrow night. Mr. Denny Corby performing for you as well as speaking tomorrow after lunch. That's all. All right? It's going to be awesome. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Kevin, how many times have you been here? What, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 times?
Yeah, I actually came one time. You guys weren't even here, so we haven't.
Never had a dinner show.
No, I got excited, and I was stalking Danny a little bit. And that little video that he did, I decided I'm just going to leave my wallet.
Has anybody else stalked Danny? Yeah?
I talked to Dean for 5 minutes and my wallet's missing.
There was nothing in it, so I put it back.
I know. My Apple Watch, my new Apple Watch,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, when you guys got the people that
He was trying to sell me an Apple Watch earlier.
There you go.
Yeah, that was cool.
All right, hey, appreciate you guys and ladies staying here a little bit later. Anybody enjoyed the sessions? Yes?
Yeah.
Mostly yes, because you take your Sundays, you invest your time here, and it truly is an investment. And that's why we're here. Troy and I get paid exactly the same thing every meeting.
And that's why Denny has not stolen my wallet either.
We do this because we love doing this and supplying information to you all, whether you're a preferred vendor partner, dealer advisory council member, or you work at a dealership. You can go back to your business or your store, and you can truly have an unfair advantage. That's what this is about. So, but I'm going to turn it over to Subi and let you do your thing. Okay? Thank you for being here. Sorry for flight delays, cancellations, and all that. So, yeah. Hey, she's had a hard day. Give her a
When I hear stories of people that say that they have the trips from hell, I just think, oh, we fly so much, it happens. But I left one of my best friend's wedding receptions early to catch the flight, and we canceled the flight. It was very, very upset. Anyway, I want to do this a little differently for me anyway. I'm going to kind of talk at a really fast pace and get through as much of this as I can in 20 minutes, and then kind of incorporate the whole mastermind concept. So kind of talk to you guys, get feedback, and then maybe address some of your questions that you guys have. But before we get going, how many of you manage people? Like, managing people and teams and things? Okay, so I really firmly believe that there is a next big thing in company culture company culture just a little while ago wasn't a thing. It wasn't something that anybody looked at, especially in automotive. And now it's become a hot topic. Dealerships are talking about it. NADA actually asked me to talk about it. It was just weird. It's become something that we're paying attention to. It happens a lot where we feel like automotive is behind the times in a lot of things. This is one of them. The whole, every industry is looking at company culture. So I think that the next thing is social culture. Not because that social media is something that everybody uses. It's just so important to be visible to people in the places that people are looking. So I think that if we incorporate our dealerships and the way that we function with our teams, and then let the rest of the world see it and become more social about it, I think it grows its own feet and spreads like wildfire, just like one of those viral videos. We want to be that viral company that people want to look at. We want to be, when people ask, what kind of company do you want to be? A lot of people say, oh, we want to be like a Google. Why can't that be our dealership? I know that when I ask people about a dealership, what kind of dealership you want to be, they say, oh, Tracy Myers, it's fun. So I think that by being that social, that incorporating that whole social culture component will get us there. But before we talk about social culture, I feel like we have to talk about company culture, the bare basics of what it is. And so I took a presentation that I had about company culture, and I condensed it, and then we're going to fly through it. If at any point you want me to talk about examples or suggestions or even ideas or questions, raise your hand or shout them out. So a little bit about me. My contact information will be at the end too. I don't think that I would have anything that I have that I've ever done for myself if it weren't for people who, out of the kindness of their hearts, helped me. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to call me directly myself. It will be up there again at the end. But I need to share with you my story. I've been in the industry a little over 6 years. I spent most of that time, every bit of that time, in dealerships. And in the last year, I went to the vendor side. Not a choice, but I love where I am now. I did everything from an internet assistant, where I took leads, I made all phone calls, called people, I would get them in the dealership, I would work the deal, do all of the deal work, paperwork, and then hand it off to F&I, because in my dealership, women weren't allowed to sell. We didn't have any female any female salespeople. So then I would flip that over to a salesperson, and I would get a $15 for doing all that work. And so while some of you may not actually manage teams and lead teams, and some of this company culture may seem completely out of your responsibilities or control, I'm here to tell you that that's absolutely false. I just started taking things, you know how they say ask for forgiveness instead of permission? It's kind of what I did. I was the lowly little internet assistant, and I just started hoarding responsibilities, not in the sense of, oh, if I keep all of this stuff a secret, then they'll have to keep me employed. I just started taking things, and I knew that my head could be chopped off if something didn't work, but I had to take that gamble on myself. So while some of these things in the company culture concept may seem out of your control, I know that you can affect these things if you just, what the heck, take it over. So the reason why I tell you my story of where I came from and how I kind of grew up in the industry and my path. Okay, all right, what do you mean? It's important because in automotive, oftentimes we have a bad month and we cancel 12 different things that we have. We get rid of things, we get rid of people, we make tons of changes, and then what happens to the sales managers that make those changes? They lose all the buy-in that they have. We don't believe them anymore, so we incorporate these changes for about a week, and then it's gone. We don't care about what they have to say. These things don't stick because of that. So I believe that the first step to any kind of culture at all is buy-in. You have to buy into me, my story, and why I'm talking to you. or else you're not gonna take your notes, you're not gonna go back and say, okay, she had something relevant to tell me. I can incorporate some of this into what I'm doing. If you don't buy into me, how are you gonna buy into the sales manager that doesn't give you the reason why he's doing something? Or gets your opinion on the CRM, and you slave away day and night to get the exact way that you want, or because one sales manager likes a specific screen that pops up on a different CRM, you're gonna cancel the whole thing and start the 6-month process for a new CRM, right? Buy-in starts with giving people the reasons to believe in you, to back you up, so that you can make these changes that you need to, make them effective. Because we can talk about company culture all day long. We can talk about, wanting to be a specific type of fun dealership, but we can't achieve that if people aren't buying in. So when I ask you about company culture, what does that mean to you? Anybody? Anybody?
Yeah, we're kind of the way people relate to one another within the company.
Okay, yeah.
Company's mission.
The mission,
Why.
the experience. I did one time receive the answer of it's hippie stuff. Company culture to some people means, it means doing things, giving things away, losing growth. It's a buzzword, it's the new thing that people are talking about, but it's not really going to help you make money. And that's completely false. If you have the right culture, you have a good experience. And culture isn't just for your customers, it's for your employees. Happy employees create happy customers. If you don't have happy employees, what happens? They cherry pick, they make
Eventually leave.
excuses.
Eventually leave.
They leave. They end up taking your customers with them sometimes. It's not a good experience for either side, the customer or the employee. So having a good culture is encompassing a lot of things that we're going to talk about. So this is where I start flying through this. This is my roadmap. This is what moving to 3 completely different dealerships in 3 completely different markets. I had to relearn a lot of things. A lot of it was different. I thought, I worked myself up to internet director at this one place, so I could take that, apply it to the next thing, and everything will be perfect. I won't have to really do too much. I won't have to learn anything. It's not true. Every market is different. Every management style is different. You have to get to know the team and the people and how they react to things. So this is what I used. And you can take each piece based on what you need for your dealership, or you can do it completely in order, which is what I'm going to talk about. So first things first, when I take over a dealership, what I do is I assess everything. And the greatest way to find out the temperature of your dealership is social media, community reaction. What are the people in your community saying about you? If you think you're wonderful because you're selling 200 units, but the community thinks that you're all snakes and nobody likes you, you're losing out that potential of maybe 300 units that you could be selling. So it's not just about what you think you're good at, it's about how people perceive you in the public, because this is how the small mom and pop shops, I feel, are kind of eaten up by these bigger companies, because they have this presence out there, and I know for a fact that the little engine that could can have a bigger presence than some of these guys that are spending millions of dollars to get people in the doors. My very first dealership was an independent dealer. I got to a point where I couldn't do anything for him, and I felt like he was overpaying me, so I had that conversation, didn't have a job lined up. So I said, John, I don't think I can do this anymore because you don't want to spend any more. He goes, Subi, I love you, I think you're great, but let's just wait for the internet to go away. Here's my 2 weeks. If I haven't in the last 3 years shown you what the internet can do for a business, then I can't do anything for you. Wonderful guys to go back there. But that just brings us back to the whole notion of getting on that same page. So social media, community reaction, get to know what people are saying about you, your reputation, all of that speaks volumes. And not just one. If you have 150 great reviews on whatever platform you choose to look at, and 100 of them are from the same person, maybe you just have a really great Kevin the Jeep guy, and not 10 really great salespeople that are giving the exact same great reaction and experience to customers when they walk in the doors. So make sure you evaluate all that. And that's where we're going next, assessment. Evaluate everything. If you are in a position where you are upper management, make sure you evaluate everyone. Evaluate your managers and the guys that think that they are exceptional at what they do. One of the greatest learning experiences I had was when I became the e-commerce and sales director for a dealership. I was never a sales director. I was never even a sales manager. So when this GM told me that he wanted me to come in as not only the e-commerce director, but the sales director, I panicked and didn't know what to do. And I had to manage these sales managers, GSMs, that really didn't want to be managed by a young female who clearly doesn't know as much as they do. So I had to get to know them and what they were doing. And one guy would always try to prove himself. We do this in this industry. We make our people prove themselves all the time and have to tell us how great they're doing instead of going out and finding out for ourselves. So we have this culture of people that always feel like they have to hoard responsibilities in a negative way. They have to, make reports for everyone, but keep it all a secret. They can't share that with anyone. They can't delegate it because that's what makes them important. You guys know people like that.
Yeah.
So I went to this guy in my first assessment round, getting to know everyone, and all he had to say was, I am the best closer there is. I'm the best sales manager. Look at my reviews. When you go to DealerRater, all you see is tons and tons of reviews for me. And I looked him dead in the eyes, and I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was just trying to put my foot down. And I said, I really don't care if you have 1,000 reviews. If the rest of your team that you're managing doesn't have those reviews, then you're not a good manager. Why do we give people these manager titles and give them this authority when they don't know how to manage people? Why do we do that? If they're a good closer, keep them as a closer. Great, here's a bonus for closing people. But those aren't managers. So we have to evaluate our managers just as much. So look for trends when you're assessing. If you find that you can't keep a new person longer than 15 days, maybe you have a problem. Maybe it's not that they're not making them like they used to, and maybe it's that we're not training them like we used to. So look for trends, and also go to your bottom line. Go to the people that are answering phones, that are using the tools, that are talking to people firsthand. Because a lot of times, because we don't have great tiers and management systems and processes and procedures, we end up with information getting this like roadblock. Picture up. So this is our typical bigger operation. You got your ownership, you got your GM, you've got your managers, and then you've got the front lines. And then what happens is they have grievances, they have issues, they have reasons why they can't do their job well. And there's this roadblock because managers don't want to admit these problems, especially the ones that they don't understand. If the manager thinks that the internet's going away, he's not going to talk about the next thing, the next idea that somebody in the front lines maybe had because of issues that they had experienced. So make sure you have a good direct line of communication. You got to assess that right from the get-go. So I do this thing that I call a culture walk, and I do it once a quarter with my teams. And all it would be is taking my sales managers and myself at different times, and we would walk through the dealership like a customer. It's incredible what we overlook because we're there. We spend more time there in daylight than we do in our own homes, so we overlook the trash that's overflowing, the coffee cups, or the information that's laid about. My good friend Megan did a presentation, so I stole her pictures with her permission. How many of you have those kinds of desks? The ones with like meals and everything all over the place. And the funny part is, one of the things that she did when she was doing that is she realized that one of the automotive magazines that she had on her table was something that was bashing her brand. there was an article in the magazine, the Fashion for Brand. These people are sitting there waiting for F&I, for pictures, and they're like, wait, what? Honda is not the car to buy? So be careful of that kind of stuff too. So just a couple of ideas as we're going to assessment, things to look for. Are your managers managing through fear? Are babies being bullied out the door? Is there an aggressive nature that's on your showroom floor that maybe is hurting any kind of forward growth? These are when I was evaluating my dealerships, and then I also did it for friends, and now I'm in that whole consulting ride. These are the 4 big things that kind of stand in the way that I've seen of dealerships really going that next level. Okay, so identifying the right culture is exceptionally important, and I'm an Uber nerd, so don't laugh at me. So I talk about DNA, the DNA of your dealership, and what that means is you have to truly understand who you are innately before you kind of put a culture in play that you want to be. Not everyone can be the fun, outgoing kind of place. I know it sounds great, but it's not feasible if your great salespeople, your customers are more on the reserve side. It's going to be uncomfortable for them. It's not going to stick. It's going to feel not authentic to the customer. So you have to truly identify what it is that you are. So I can read a little automotive version of it. So a DNA structure, like you saw, is that scientific approach. And then this is people, processes, personality, and your unique quality. What makes you guys unique to... I don't believe that you have to give cars away to sell them. I don't think that that is even a factor. But what I do think helps bring you value is your unique quality. What makes you so unique? And when I ask that question, okay, so what makes you and your dealerships unique? In your value package, what makes you unique? What do we tell our customers why we should buy from my dealership instead of the dealership down the road that has just that? Anybody? Free Wi-Fi, like everybody else. You know, service coupons. We have to have a unique quality that actually makes sense. It's tangible to that person that tells them, okay, this is why I should buy from you. Whether it be a really great personality, a great experience, do you have your stuff down pat that you can speed people through the process and make it a really efficient process for them? Do you deliver to businesses or to their homes? Can you sell out of state into different areas? There's a lot of different things that you can do easily that your competition is not thinking about, or everybody's already doing, you're just not telling the customers. You do that a lot. Okay, so some really quick ideas of identifying the right culture. There's the family feel, car seat thing, like all different types of things that you can do for families. There's some dealerships that do it really well. And so I just took examples of my friends that I've seen that they've done with their dealerships. Community focused. I don't know if any of you know Kevin Fry, follow him, he's a genius. You can do charitable things. You don't have to brag about the things you do. I think there's a way to tell the public what you're doing without bragging about it. Sharing that you're a part of something and saying, look, we raised $10,001 for this company, and just boasting about it. It makes a difference, so be careful about how you put it out there. The fun, exciting place to work. I don't know if you know that guy. Exceptional service is probably the best thing. People are willing, and I've said this before, and I've seen it somewhere, and I've experienced it myself, but Driving Sales just did a study that talked about actually having data to support this, but people are willing to drive further and spend more money for better service. That's a fact. And if we don't embrace that, somebody else is going to give them better service, and they're going to drive further, even if they're right up the block from us. But they'll come back to us for service. Okay, just tell me on time.
Good.
Okay. I know the Ritz-Carlton has been so overplayed in automotive, but I saw Jennifer Blackman speak once, and it really, really stood out to me. You can't get people to do what you want them to do. If you do, it's short term. So you get people to want to do the things that support your culture. Get them to want to do it. This is a really great book to read. They have amazing materials as a company. All the little things that they do makes such a huge difference. And it's not something overwhelming. It's little creative things like when you walk in the door, the bellman gets your name, passes it on to the next person. When you walk up to the desk, they already have your name. It's the little things that we can incorporate that make it a huge difference. So I'm all about creating strategies and plans. I'm going to fly through this section. If there's anything you want, let me know and I'll get it to you. But these are all different things that you can do. You don't have to do all of them, but having some sort of structure to your culture helps really build it and set that foundation that makes you have it for the long term and not for 2 weeks. I created mottos and mission statements and credos, and then I handed it out and made sure all of my salespeople did it without the owner's approval. I just kind of started doing things. But he fully supported it, and so I didn't have a problem. But it's mind-boggling just giving people a directive, how they feel like they know what to do then. If you let people just do as they will, they'll do as they will. But if you give them a directive and some structure of how you want them to be, even the old school guys will join in. And I say that because my very first dealership, this was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 90% of the salespeople were all older and they refused to email their customers. So they wanted me to keep a track of all of their emails and alert them and then transcribe their message and then send it to them. So I had 12 email accounts. And then when I got moved up from internet assistant to internet manager in 3 months because the manager stopped showing up. She was doing my job, so she stopped showing up. I decided that I was going to stop doing that. And then I told them that I wasn't going to respond to any of their questions unless it was by email. So they had to email me their questions. So if they need to get their computer checked, which obviously because I'm an internet director, that means I can fix computers. It's the little things like that that make a huge difference. Every single one of them now, when I go back to visit, talk about how they're emailing and they've sold customers via emailing people like 3 months later. They're still a little behind, but they're getting there. So creating a strategy plan, the Ritz-Carlton, I think, is the granddaddy of the way that things are done really well. So they have on their website, if you look up gold standards, you'll end up on this page. They've got motto, credo, 3 steps to start. They have all these wonderful things that you can adapt. And I worked at a company that did adapt it to their own. And they have, oh, you can't read that, can you? Okay. I can give you guys a copy if anybody wants it. But it's just 16 points. The first one's, we are ladies and gentlemen, starting ladies and gentlemen, all the way down to don't point somewhere, take someone to the place they're requesting, and then never say it's not my job. Little things like that aren't a big thing that people have to incorporate. It's just simple little rules to make a difference. Okay, so bridging departments together. This is something that I am like I blows my mind how many people think that it's okay the way that they function. So a customer walks in, they deal with a receptionist, a salesperson, or maybe they call in and deal with the phone. Then salesperson, sales manager, F&I, their stuff goes to the back office, right? They pretty much touch all aspects of our dealership. And yet, every single one of those teams completely function on their own without having communication. Anybody understand that? Yeah? Feel like you've experienced it? Why the heck do we do that? Why don't we start talking as departments? Why do we have this whole my department versus your department thing? It needs to be, if you're management, I have two rules as a sales director. And you don't bitch up, don't bitch down. When you're going to complain up, don't complain down. When you have issues and frustration, if you let that filter all the way down, you're poisoning that team. You are hurting them from seeing it in their green little pastures of just the things they need to accomplish. Now they see this broken chain of command and then they don't want to do, or they don't believe in it. It's that whole thing about buy-in. And the other thing is everything's behind closed doors. If we have an issue,
all the department heads get behind that door, we fight, we may disagree, but whatever point we reach at the end, that is the point that we tell all of our teams. Nothing else. It's not a, guys, we have to do this. Why? I didn't want to. These 3 people voted for it and I didn't. It's got to be one face, one voice, or else you're going to have that breakdown. And the moment you see somebody not following that, you either write them up or you let them go. Why do we hold on to salespeople or sales managers way longer than we have to? Why do we do that? We end up with these toxic cultures simply because somebody's a 30-car guy. Well, you might be missing out on 6 30-car guys if that one person is getting people pushed out the door. Sorry, I rant a lot. So this is something that I started doing called expectation meetings. This is one of them. So whenever I hire someone, the day that they're hired, right after we do paperwork, I have an expectations meeting with them. And then also when we do our annual or quarterly reviews of how they're doing, expectation meetings are very simple. Oftentimes we have expectations for individuals or roles or responsibilities. And we never tell that person what we expect. We just tell them when we're disappointed. So I kick it off with an expectations meeting that says, I want you, and these are the things that are, and everyone's different, right? For me, if you don't respond to an email that I send out with some sort of responsibility, like if it's just a, hey, how are you doing? And you ignore it because you have things to do, that's fine. But if it's talking about something and you ignore it, that to me is a red flag. If you're not organized or you just don't want to respond to me. And when I assign something out, I'm expecting you, I'm not someone who wants to hold your hand through things. That's not the kind of manager I am. So when I assign something to you, I expect you to give me updates and keep me updated. And if there's a reason why we can't reach that deadline or we can't accomplish what we need to accomplish, you need to come to me. Because I'm not one of those kinds of managers. So, but there are other people who are those kinds of managers. They want to be along with you. So you have to tell them what kind of leader you are. And you have to identify what strengths and weaknesses they have. So if you have an expectations meeting, you can accomplish getting to know those people right off the bat and setting the tone of what you truly expect, what kind of daily, weekly things you're looking to get from them. And then you also open up the line of communication. You're not just handing them off to someone with a manual that says how to be a salesperson on it. You're telling them that you are someone that they can reach to if they're having issues, and you can follow them through the path so you're not just ushering people in and out. Because every time you have an employee that gets ushered in and ushered out, even if they've never been in automotive before, what happens? They have a sour taste in their mouth. Maybe they see the opportunity and they go to another dealership and now they have all this ammo to use against you. You're just spreading this negative culture about yourself. Even though they're just employees, they're still talking to customers every day.
Hey, Subi, real quick on that note of the expectation meetings that you brought up, it just brings to mind a long time ago I read an article about the top 6 reasons why employees fail. And I don't even know what the bottom 5 were, but I remember it and I have used it since that day, and I'll second your motion here. The number 1 reason any employee fails is they do not know what's expected of them. So this expectations meeting is huge. I mean, they just don't know what management wants from them. They don't know what's expected of them. So therefore, they don't complete those tasks in that way. And that truly is the reason, when you hear about an employee failing, we got to look at it as leaders and managers that we let them down.
Right.
So that expectation meeting too is a great point.
And also, exit interviews are really important. If you don't do them, do them. Even if you have a bad dismissal, okay, so there's the bell curve, right? When you do surveys and get data back, there's always going to be the outliers, the people that hate you for absolutely no reason, the people that love you for absolutely no reason. But in the middle, there's a good chunk that you might be able to get some insight into trends and things that are wrong that maybe you're not getting because your manager that you're talking to tells you that everything's great. But then what's beyond that wall? Those exit interviews come in really, really handy. So having those expectations, but if you fail, then get that input from them.
How many people are really, truly doing exit interviews?
I mean, really 100% of the time it's part of the process. If you're not managers, if you're not doing exit interviews, one thing that you'll find out, Subi, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the authority here on this, but they're the most honest at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point. They will tell you anything at that point. They've got nothing to lose.
Well,
So-
you have to just, from experience,
Weed through some of that?
you have to weed through.
Oh, yeah.
There's caveats. You have to get through the emotional nonsense of I hate X because of X, or I got X for this, or I didn't get this. You have to really listen through to see if it was a personality clash, if it was training or
Right.
lack of training, or is it really in the core of your process is wrong.
Right.
So your expectation is here, even if you tell them what to expect, but if the actual process to execute is broken, they can't do what you told them to do, and nobody wants to address that. So you have to sort of weed through, especially, the good ones who are moving on will always give you some good stuff. Here's my moving on, this is what it is, feedback, the angry one, you gotta see.
But at the same time, even the angry ones that maybe have these personality clash issues and things like that, you still want to note that down, because 6 months from now, when maybe it happens again, and then another 6 months goes
Right.
on, you might be able to see a trend of a specific manager that's having personality clashes with specific people. So then, really quickly going on the whole survey thing, when you assess, forgot to mention this earlier, but you're doing assessments and you're evaluating people, a really great way to do that is through surveys, especially if you can make them feel, if you're interviewing them face to face, a lot of times people won't say things, but it's that whole bell curve thing again. You're going to get responses that they're in love with you and they want to suck up because they like what they're doing or they want to move up, and then there's people that are kind of just complaining about everything while experiencing that. But in the middle, you'll get some really good data. At the same time, when you're looking at that data, you want to keep in mind that you need to keep your emotions in check, because you're going to get a real insert of things that you think work really well. So I would say that, and then 2 places where you can do surveys for cheap or free, SurveyMonkey and Google Surveys. I would really, really recommend using those 2 sources, or either of those. So bridging departments together, again, is really important. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, so a lot of time in this industry, we have this other issue that kind of gets me on a rant. We give these people these titles because we think that's what's going to make them happy, and then we don't give them the authority that they deserve to go with that role. If you're the director, or you're the internet manager, or you really aren't a manager, you have no say. You just handle leads and/or these people that lead. So if you're going to give someone that kind of authority, or that title, give them the authority that goes with it. It's exceptionally important. And then also enforcing that when we're bridging departments together, if we can force them to communicate, and in the beginning, it's not easy. I worked at that independent dealership was actually part of a 6-store operation, and they were all the sons of the original owner. They all had their own dealerships, and that's where I learned this from. They were all brothers that were really successful in their own right, but the father made them all have meetings together. So they brought that down to their dealership level. Even though they worked for different brothers, they made sure that every single F&I manager had to meet together, so that if their group branding, they want to make sure that all the F&I managers, all the internet managers, all the service managers knew what the latest and greatest was, and they had to share. So even though they were competitors, they had to share that. But also within the dealership themselves, every manager had to meet. You had to talk about things you were working on. And one of the rules was, in this room, you do not defend your team. You identify what the problems are together, because if there's a breakdown in the process, it's between 2 departments, not one. So we both have to identify it. But bridging the departments comes down to helping them understand So cultivating those relationships between the departments, getting them to understand why one does X and the other does Y also helps, getting them to understand why they might be having an issue. I think service and sales are the biggest two culprits where they truly don't understand each other at all, and they butt heads a lot. But getting them to understand why you have to do service block intros because they're good for the dealership, not because your service writers really want to stop what they're doing for 5 minutes. If you get them to understand the reasons why they do it, and then forcing them to have those monthly meetings really helps. A lot of times they get busy, they can't make it, you know. Have food, it helps. They'll be there for free food. And then hold each and every department. So I had a mission statement for each and every department, what their role within the dealership is. We had one for the whole dealership, and then we had one for each different department, so they understood their piece, how important they were to the operation as a whole. And I asked Tracy to use this for my NADA presentation, but I am obsessed with this. I think that putting these kinds of values of what your role is within the dealership for the salespeople really helps them understand that they're not just the pegs that make the sales. You're a huge part of us, of what we do, of our brand. You're the faces, and helping them to understand that and how they're part of something bigger. Together, we should make a positive impact on all the communities we serve. That has nothing to do with sales and everything to do with what you want your dealership to be. Thanks.
You're welcome.
It's just another, a little bit more descriptive. So I can,
That's on our website, by the way.
yeah.
Thank you.
So then investing in employees, I hate when I talk to internet managers. Obviously, internet is where my heart is because that's where I started, and I feel like I understand those people the best. But if you're not willing to invest in them and give them tools to not only just do their job, but to expand their job and to do it better than before, then you're not really helping yourself. One of the things that I did is I didn't really have a budget. Anything that I had to be creative about came out of my pocket, and if they saw that it worked, then I got reimbursed. So I got unpaid interns, and then because the unpaid interns, so I had to do extra work to give them the documents, and I had to train them, and I had to do all this stuff that the universities made me do. But it was so worth it, because then I got 4 people that was doing 20 hours a week with me. That's a lot of time that I didn't have to do the menial stuff and creative stuff. So I learned stuff from them. From that, they let me hire people because they saw how impactful it was. So I then had interns and 4 part-time college students who never worked in automotive. Some of them really couldn't even change the tire if you asked them to in the beginning. But each 4 of those kids had skills. So I got to know that one wanted to be an actor, one really liked graphics, and the other one, each one had their own separate things. So I gave the one that wanted to be an actor 2 side projects that he had to do in any given week. And that was to do video walk-around. He had 5 points. He had to research on the car that he had to do a walk-around about. You don't have to be a car expert to know that you look up the car facts, to find out 2 facts about the car, about why it's special, and then say the intro and the outro. That's it. You don't have to be an expert to do a great video walk-around. So he did 2 of those a week, and then my graphics guy, I let him fool around on Photoshop for an hour a week, but while he was doing that, he had to come up with 5 banners for me while he was playing around with it and learning. When they get to spend time in bettering themselves, initially, everyone told me that I wasn't going to work because, they're going to be spending time making themselves better. But what I found is when they had side projects, and I've done that in every team since, every single one of my teams has their core responsibilities and a side project that they're working on. Every single time I've incorporated that, we're more efficient, and we can accomplish a lot more. I mean, they're just, when you have to, how many of you have had to answer leads? Ever? Yeah, okay. Saying the same thing to 100 and then getting rejected and having to say it again and then do it again is monotonous. When you give people creative projects, it's incredible how much your brain opens up and you feel more like you're a part of that actual team instead of a robot that's doing the same thing over and over again. Okay, so this is where we get to like the whole social concept of taking it to social media. How much time? We're good? Okay. So we're going through all that. We kind of now, at this point, we've assessed what we need to do, who we want to be. We've come up with a plan on how to achieve it. We've put it in place, and we've bridged the departments together. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes months, depending on who you have. Sometimes it happens sooner. But it's going to always be work. The thing is, the road isn't a smooth one. You're going to have hiccups. But just because you have a hiccup doesn't mean that you have to start from scratch and rethink everything. Don't scrap the idea. Just keep going, because you're going to have issues that come up, things you need to solve. Keep it going. And then hold every single person accountable. And then enforce consequences. The number of times I had to tell people, if you don't sell 7 cars, you're not going to be employed, or if you are toxic and you behave this way, then we're going to ask you to leave. And because you're a 30-car guy, it doesn't matter, and yet he was still employed for 14 months. We got to make sure that those rules stick, because if they don't apply to that one guy, why should it have to apply? Not only is it illegal for us to do that, but it's also setting a really bad example, which perpetuates that whole negative culture. So then you take to the world. We're so interconnected with each other. 2 years ago, I was still involved with the automotive community via the digital method. And when I would see people like, he is my friend, and I love him, and we're best friends, and I would see all these people talk about that way, people that they've never really met before, and I thought they were crazy. But now that I'm more involved, I could look around this room and see people that I genuinely feel connected with. Michael Cirillo, I consider him my brother from another mother. I don't know what happened. I tantalized the child, he stayed indoors, but I feel we feel connected to people we've never met before. So why is that different for our customers? If potential customers maybe don't have the funds to buy a car today, or they're looking at a dream car, if they can watch us and never interact with us, what kind of personality are we going to see? Are they going to see the people that they want to do business with? Or are they going to see people that maybe I should stay away from, but they're entertaining to watch as people distract them all day? So when we take it to the world, it's not just about putting up Facebook posts anymore. We used to be able to get away with that. We can't anymore. You need to build advocates within your dealership, and that's employees and customers. You all have cheerleaders, people that come back to your dealership even when they don't have to be there, right? Like people that genuinely love what you do, and I want to help you guys. Those are the best. But when we take it to the world, it's about incorporating that whole culture into every aspect of who we are in the dealership and outside. One of the rules we had is if you're going to sign up with us to work for us, you represent us. You don't represent us poorly by creating a brand for yourself and then putting up racial slurs on your Facebook profile. If you don't like that rule, you don't have to work for us. We're proud of the team we're putting together. I would stand by my team and Dealer Authority any day of the week. It's all free speech. Do whatever you want, but just know that we expect a certain caliber when you're talking to customers, whether it be on a work line or on a website somewhere. When you're putting up posts about automotive things, keep that in mind, what we stand for as a company. If you don't, you're getting a negative impression of us, and that's not something we stand for. So create advocates within your dealership. Allow them to fall in love with what you do and share that to the world, because what happens is you have these situations where people, for the vendors in the room, do you have advocates in dealers that like, you don't have to ask them to say anything nice about you, and they do all the time? And
Yes.
Those posts get far more traction than anything you write on their own, right? that's the same concept. It spreads so much further when somebody else is speaking on our behalf. If I tell you that, my IQ is through the roof, I'm the smartest person in the world, you probably roll your eyes, but if a doctor or somebody else walks in and values that, I'm not, then you'll know for sure that maybe there's something to it, maybe I need to look further. And that's what we need to start doing. Create a culture that's shareable, whether it be word of mouth or digital. Digital is everything now. Google's not going away. So if we incorporate this kind of concept of who we are, we're completely comfortable in our culture, and then create opportunities for us to share it within events that we do in-house, but also create opportunities for our advocates to share it publicly. One of the things that we do at my company now is we're all about charity, but not in a typical sense of we expect this much more money kind of thing. It's more of we want to give back. I feel like we're really, really blessed to have the success we've had. I feel very, very blessed to have the success I have. So I believe in giving back, whether it be taking 2 people under my wing for that year, just focusing on them, or doing it in other ways. So we have our team, their goal for the year is to do community service in whatever way they want, with their favorite charity or someone else. If they're on the social team, they want to take over a social page and do it for that company completely pro bono, then that's their hours. Whoever does the most hours gets a prize at the end. It's not something that we announce, it's something that my team knows that we support them in that way, and it's something that's important to us, and they buy in and they love it and they do it. But then what we eventually found out is that they were sharing that stuff, but in their own subtle ways. It's not about bragging, it's about being proud of what you do. I actually got a lot of heat about 6 months ago from a really good friend of mine saying like, oh, all this marketing we do, I talk about how much you love the company and getting really out of hand. And I looked at it and I'm like, I love the people that I'm with. I feel so lucky to be with this group of people that allow me to be the way that I am, to talk about things that I'm interested in talking about. So I'm going to share that. I really don't care what you think. It's because I love what I do. And if we have that kind of experience for our employees, no one's going to swallow that by products. Okay, so that's pretty much what it is. I genuinely feel that social culture is going to be a topic that becomes a hot topic in no time at all. I think if we embrace that earlier, incorporate this component of allowing individuals within our dealership to become advocates and to share it, but have rules. There's a lot of people that right now are into personal branding for as a salesperson, and that's exceptionally important. But if you have rules of how it's done, you as a manager also don't have issues of, Subi at this place who has an issue, and all of a sudden all of those followers become Subi at another place. And then also rules of what they can and cannot say online when they're tagging the company. We can't limit, nor do we want to limit who they are, because the person that we think our customer loves is not the same for anybody. There's 12 different types of personalities, and there's people for every single one of those 12 personalities on the show floor. But what you can do is, listen, one, don't tag us every day of the week, because that blows up our Facebook page. But limit it to, X number, depending on how many advocates you have, X number of times a month. Or when you tag us, make sure you use proper grammar. That'd be great. Or, create your own rules of things that are important to you, depending on how many people want to be involved. If you want to have people involved and you don't know how to do it, reach out to people, especially in this group. We've got tons of feedback. But I genuinely feel like taking our culture to that social realm, not just on the digital front, is where everything's headed. And that's my 2 cents. Well, probably more like $3.
Is Carstrong one of the things you're talking about? Is that one of your, is that one of the dealer authorities giving back with Christine's doing, or no?
No. So Christine She's a really compassionate person. And when she saw Brian Armstrong's story, she has a relationship with him. When I lost my job, he called me every day. So I felt like I wanted to do something. We were all just kind of doing different things for him.
Right.
So we all came together, and none of us are in a place where we can spend our money. So we feel like we're helping, but it's totally different. It's just, we support it.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah. But that's just it, though.
Right.
Um,
That becomes a culture of dealer authority.
Yes. Well, I mean, in my very first interview, JD and Tosin, my now partner, they asked me all the things that I wanted to do, what I wanted to accomplish in the next 2 years, 5 years, and I told them, I want to adopt, we can't have children, I'm like super obsessed with children. So everything was hunky-dory, we were just doing our jobs, and then about a year into it, they slipped up on a phone call and told me they had been putting money aside to help me with adoption. I'm not leaving them. There's nothing they could do to make me leave them. And that's the kind of relationship that we need with our employees. And I would do anything for them. So I recently had this incredible opportunity, and they were trying to convince me to take it. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. You can't make me. So I think it's the little things that we do for our employees.
They found out your why,
Yeah.
your true why. That's your why.
Yeah, but they didn't do it to convince me.
Right.
They did it from knowing
Right.
the fact that they had a heart, and that's something that we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions? Thanks for saying that.